I think technology is the thing that causes these big step changes in civilization. So obviously you've got things like, say, the Gutenberg press, before which
Right.
it was very difficult to get books. They were
Yes.
very rare. Even if you had a thirst for knowledge, you really couldn't do anything about it because there were very few books to read. So, and the internet is something beyond the Gutenberg press, I think. When I first saw the internet coming into being in a way that the general public could use it, humanity as a whole was developing a nervous system. So previously, the way that information would travel would be by osmosis, one person to another, or one person calling another. The access to information was very limited. Now with the internet, it's like having a nervous system. It's like any part of humanity has access to almost all the information of humanity. Like you could be in the middle of the Amazon jungle with, say, a Starlink terminal and have access to more information than the president did in 1980.
First of all, what is the woke mind virus? And if we don't deal with this, nothing else can get done. Tell me why you think that.
I think we need to be very cautious about anything that is anti-meritocratic and anything that is that results in the suppression of free speech. So, those are two of the aspects of the woke mind virus that I think are very dangerous. Is that it's often anti-meritocratic. You can't question things. Even the questioning is bad. Another way to almost synonymous would be cancel culture. And obviously people have tried to cancel you many times.
Many times.
Yeah, I mean,
every week.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. People, you and I are both like in that little group of people. Maybe it's a bigger group now.
Yeah.
Who are called conservative, who haven't really changed. I don't think of you as a conservative.
I'm definitely. I at least think of myself as a moderate. So, I mean, at least I've spent a massive amount of my life energy building sustainable energy. Electric vehicles and batteries and solar and stuff to help save the environment. Not exactly far right.
No, you drew that diagram. You drew that diagram once where you're here. I related to that, and like the world has changed.
Right.
I feel the same way. I feel like very often wokeness is not building on liberalism. It's the opposite of liberalism. I can mention many examples where it's including free speech.
Free speech is actually is extremely important. Like free speech used to be a left or liberal value. And yet we see from the in quotes left a desire to actually censor. That seems crazy. I mean, I think we should be extremely concerned about anything that undermines the First Amendment. There's a reason for the First Amendment. People came from countries where they could not speak freely, and where saying certain things would get you thrown into prison. And they were like, well, we don't want that here. And by the way, in many parts of the world, including parts of the world that people might think are relatively similar to the United States, the speech laws are draconian. I really can't emphasize this enough. We must protect free speech, and free speech only matters. It's only relevant when it's someone you don't like saying something you don't like, because obviously speech that you like is that's easy. The thing about censorship is that sure, for those who would advocate it, just remember at some point that will be turned on you.
This woke mind virus, how did it start? Was it bats? Was it a escape from a lab? I mean, what is your assessment of what, because it's fairly recent. How did it start and why?
So I was trying to figure out where it's coming from. I think it's actually been a long time brewing. The amount of indoctrination that's happening in schools and universities is, I think, far beyond what parents realize. The experience that we had in high school and college is not the experience that kids today are having, and hasn't been for 10 years, maybe 20 years. So,
aren't parents themselves also a big part of the problem?
Well, I suppose in some cases that parents, but I think like the parents are just generally not aware of what their kids are being taught, or what they're not being taught.
But they're letting the kids think that they're equal.
I mean, yeah. Let me give you an example that a friend of mine told me, which his daughters go to college go to high school in the Bay Area, and he was asking them like, well, so who are the first few presidents of the United States? They could name Washington, and I said, well, what do you know about him? Well, he was a slave owner. What else?
Right. Exactly.
Nothing.
Right.
Like, okay, maybe you should know more than that. You have to say, like, well, what does canceled mean? I mean, yes, if people attack you on Twitter, that's one thing, but frankly, that's just going to increase engagement. So I would just ignore it.
I mean,
No, resources will be fine.
But they're not
And
fine.
I know a lot about
They're not
this.
fine now.
No, look, I'm not suggesting complacency.
But-
We do want to move to a sustainable energy economy as quickly as possible, but we're not in any danger of resource collapse. No,
Same.
Earth is 70% water by surface area.
But you can't drink that.
But desalination is absurdly cheap.
Why don't we do it then?
We do it. It is done.
You have a lot of free time.
It is done. There is a lot of desalination done.
Okay,
there's plenty of water. This is not an issue. I want to be clear.
All right. So, but let's talk about AI because, like, you were on this tip 10 years ago when nobody
Yes.
else was. And I always
Yeah.
thought he's right. Why? Because I've seen too many movies. Everything that happens in movies then
Yeah.
happens in real life. And
Yeah.
you know, if you make things that are way smarter than you, why wouldn't they become your overlords? So what did you say to Chuck Schumer, and what are we doing about this? I know you want to pause in
Yeah.
AI because just in the last 6 months with ChatGPT, which came from a company you started.
I mean, a friend of mine has a sort of modification of Occam's razor. So instead of the simplest thing being the most likely, the most ironic outcome is the most likely. With respect to AI, I just think we should have some sort of regulatory oversight. So, for anything that is a danger to the public, if it's sort of aircraft, cars, food and drug and whatnot, we've got some regulatory oversight, like a referee, essentially, and making sure that companies don't cut corners. So I think that if one agrees that AI is a potential risk to the public, then there should be some regulatory body that oversees what companies are doing so that they don't cut corners and potentially do something very dangerous. Actually, Ray Kurzweil's prediction for artificial superintelligence is 2029. He's not far wrong.
Right. But he doesn't think it's a problem, whereas people like
Oh.
you and Bill
Well,
Gates and Stephen Hawking think it's a problem.
Yeah, it depends. If some people want to live forever or for a much longer period of time, and they see AI as the only way to, or digital superintelligence as the only thing that can figure out how to get them to live forever, I think Kurzweil is in that category. So he would prefer to have AI, artificial general intelligence, than not, because it can figure out longevity.
So are you optimistic? I read in your Rolling Stone article back in the day that you said you can never be happy unless you're in love.
Well, you can be half happy, I suppose. I mean, there's two things. I think if to be most happy, if you're happy in love and you love your work, then
Right.
you'll be, I think, fully happy. If you lack either of those two, if you have one of those two things, you'll be half happy. Roughly.
But I feel like the theme in a lot of your works that connect all these different things is connecting. Like you want to connect things. You want to connect on the Hyperloop, and you want to connect this to Mars. And when you bought Twitter,
Yeah.
you're kind of doing what you did when you took over, when you started Tesla. You
Yeah.
lived at the factory, right? I feel like that's your pattern. You get into this thing, and then you got to live at the factory to make it work. 'Cause
Yeah.
You've been you moved to Texas, then you went back up to San Francisco because of Twitter.
I was living in the library of Twitter for a while. Yes. I think things are reasonably stabilized right now. It was just on the fast track to bankruptcy after the acquisition, so I had to take drastic action. There wasn't any choice.
Right, I'm just saying it's hard for a woman
Yeah.
to, like, when the guy lives at the factory.
My concern with Twitter was it is somewhat of the digital town square, and it's important that there be both the reality and perception of trust for a wide range of viewpoints. And there was a lot of censorship going on, and we sort of uncovered a lot of that with the Twitter files, including a lot of government-driven censorship, which it seems that that's got to be a constitutional violation, what was going on there. But and I could, since I'm like an avid Twitter user, I could detect that like something's not right here, and so that's really why I did the acquisition. It wasn't because I thought this was an easy way to make money or something like that. This is me being mayor of Tweet Town or whatever. Is definitely like there's a lot of arrows pointed at you, like flying at you.
Of
you
course.
know.
But you seem to handle that okay. I hope you do, because
Yeah.
look, I mean, geniuses are going to be a little quirky sometimes, but your heart is always in the right place. You were trying to fix this world.